The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this afternoon's webinar, kindly arranged by Changeboard. Thanks for attending. We're going to be, over the next half an hour or so, we're going to be talking about mobile recruiting and the rise of mobile recruitment. Basically, you're sort of dialed into the webinar, so feel free to ask questions as we go along. I'm kind of administrating this webinar myself, so what I'll be doing is picking up the questions at the end of the session. So let's start. So let me start by introducing myself. My name's Matt Alder, and I'm an independent consultant with my company MetaShift, and I specialise in helping companies use the internet more effectively in their talent attraction. So mobile recruiting is a big topic for me. I've worked on a number of mobile recruiting projects over the years, and I do a huge amount of research to see how companies are using mobile in their talent acquisition and their HR, and hopefully there's some of the learnings that I can bring into today's session. So what are we going to cover over the next half an hour or so? Really, we're going to look at four things. So I want to start by giving you an introduction into the mobile landscape. Where are we now? Why is this important? Then talk about how important it might be to kind of adapt some of the activity that you're currently doing into the mobile space. Then we are looking, basically we'll be looking at the practicalities around how you do this. And then I'm going to finish by giving you a case study of a company who I think is doing this really, really well. So to start off with, let's have a look at the landscape. So this year was a very, very important year because this year was, as you can see from the slide that's on the screen now, this year was the year that smartphone sales overtook the sales of personal computers and laptops. This is a really, really interesting report that looks at global device sales and internet access. As you can see, when you kind of project the current trends into the future, smartphones and tablets are really where we're going. And it really kind of follows on, as you can see from this slide, that actually basically the rise of the mobile web is absolutely enormous. So within a couple of years, more people will be accessing the mobile web than they will be accessing web via their desktop. And in fact, in India, that's already happened. Mobile web is already bigger than the desktop internet. Really, just to kind of sort of show you where the revolution's going. If you look at any of the tech sites, the news, all that kind of stuff at the moment, there's a tablet war going on at the moment. So Google have just released a new tablet. The iPad Mini has just come out. Microsoft Surface has just come out. The Kindle Fire has just launched in the UK. These really are the kind of hottest bits of technology that are out there. And this is what's going to send the mobile web completely mass market. I know this because my mum bought an iPad this week, and my mum is the most technically deficient person I know. So that kind of really says that we're going into the we're going into the mass market with all of this. So basically, it's highly likely that your audience in the future and a high proportion of your audience currently will be accessing any talent acquisition or recruitment content that you have via the mobile web, and that's why this is kind of an incredibly important topic. One of the things that's worth pointing out when we talk about mobile web access is sometimes there's an assumption that people only look at the web on their mobile or on their tablet when they're on the move, when they're mobile. But actually, a huge proportion of mobile use is actually in the home. As you can see by the slide I've just flicked to, more than 2/3 of consumer mobile phone internet usage actually happens at home, and it happens when people are on, are on a broadband connection. So what's happening is it's actually changing the way that we consume information. The slide that's on the screen now is part of a report that Google did, looking at how people kind of interact with different forms of information. And really what we're seeing is the rise of something called dual screening. So if you think about how you might use your smartphone or tablet in the home, 77% of us are actually using these devices while we're watching television. So basically, media consumption takes place across a number of different devices, and it's important to realize that just because the phone is mobile, it doesn't necessarily mean that the person's mobile. So when we're thinking about people accessing recruitment information online, it may be that in their home, their preferred way of accessing the internet is from a mobile device. So you kind of see that this has huge implications for, for how you kind of plan your digital recruitment strategy or digital HR strategy. Really, to me, this is kind of the most exciting time, the most exciting change that's happened in technology and business for literally the sort of 10, 15 years since we got the internet. So I really think it's that important, and I think that over the coming months or years, mobile will be absolutely front and center of your strategy. Obviously, in the recruitment space, there's a huge amount of talk about social media at the moment, and lots of companies experimenting with Facebook and Twitter, huge amounts of employers getting success from using LinkedIn. Now, huge amounts of social media consumption happen on people's mobile phones. And I know of employers who actually, once they've got their mobile strategy sorted, they found the response and the ROI from their social media has increased dramatically. And in fact, one of the employers actually said to me that the biggest mistake they made with their social media strategy was not getting their mobile strategy sorted first. So think of all the, the tweets you might be doing, the Facebook updates, even the LinkedIn, some of the LinkedIn activity. It's likely that people are following the links and actually trying to view your recruitment site on their mobile phones. So this kind of stuff is already happening. So you kind of already have, a mobile recruitment presence, even if you haven't planned for it, and even if you don't know what it looks like. So what about recruitment? What's specifically happening in the recruitment space? On the screen now, and someone's asked about whether you'll get a copy of these slides. We'll send you a copy of these slides because there's some quite interesting data in there, and I haven't got time to necessarily share it all now. On the screen is a mobile survey that was done by a company called Educate in conjunction with another company called Reconverse this March. And basically they asked 32,000 people across all demographics a series of questions about mobile recruitment. And you can see straight away that there's an overwhelming kind of audience positivity in terms of using their phones in the job hunting process. So 72% of the respondees were interested in receiving career information via their phone. 63% had already searched for a job on their mobile. 48% had already tried to apply for a job on their mobile. And I think that's really, really sort of telling statistics. And then 79% of those who hadn't applied for a job would apply for a job in the future. It was, to answer the question, it was a UK-based survey. So it was done across all UK demographics in March of this year. Probably most interestingly, 84% of people thought companies should have a separate mobile recruitment site. And it's really interesting. When you look at the job boards are kind of already on board and already here with mobile. Very often when I'm sure you've attended webinars like these or presentations where people talk about the death of job boards and job boards not keeping up with what's going on. But when it comes to mobile, actually, the job boards are really kind of there. So 16% of job sites traffic comes from mobile, 50% of Guardian Jobs' traffic comes from mobile, and these are figures that are literally doubling every year. So you can see that there's an appetite there. Also, if you're an employer who's advertising on job boards, it's worth kind of bearing in mind that obviously a lot of the traffic you get from job boards comes from jobs by email. And jobs by email tend to be read by people on their phones. So if they're clicking through to your site, again, if your site isn't ready for mobile visitors, you can actually effectively be wasting some of the money that you spend on job boards. So, from a recruitment perspective, your audience is already there, and your audience wants to receive information in this way. So this is kind of really the first time that's happened, the first time the audience has actually got ahead of the employers in terms of how they want to receive information, and that's why, coupled with the stats that I showed you at the beginning, that's why I feel this is such an important area. So. Let's talk about adaptation. What are the key things when it comes to actually adapting your strategy to work in the mobile web? So, one of the biggest one of the most often asked questions when it comes to mobile strategy is: should I have a mobile optimized website, an mSite, which I've put at the top of the slide there, or should I have an app? To me, it's completely the wrong question to ask. Basically, I believe that everyone should have a mobile optimized website because you already have traffic there. People are already trying to view your jobs, view your company information on that site. That's not to say you shouldn't have an app. Some companies are having success with iPhone apps and Android apps and all that sort of stuff. However, when you create an app, you have to think about, well, what is it that what purpose does it serve for the target audience? And you have to market separately because you have to get people to download it. And in my opinion, I'm not sure that apps are particularly good at the start of the talent acquisition process. It may be that apps are onboarding, or I've seen lots of companies use internal apps as part of their HR strategy or as part of their employee engagement strategy. I've seen them use them really, really well. Personally, I'm not convinced that mobile apps work particularly well for employers at the start of a talent acquisition process. However, it isn't mSite or app in terms of the argument. It's should I have a mobile site? Yes. Should I have an app? That's something we're thinking about, but it's not an either-or. It's certainly not an either-or situation. So at this point, I just want to take a quick poll from the audience because I want to see how many of you guys already have a mobile site. So basically, at this point now, you should be seeing a poll on your screen. Okay, so yep, everyone's voting. So if about half of you have voted so far. So if you keep voting. Okay, nearly everyone's voted. Okay, I'm going to give you 5 more seconds. So the remaining 13% of you can vote. Okay, so let me. Okay, right. So we'll close the poll. We'll close the poll there, and let me just share the results with you. So there you'll see this is actually pretty typical of any kind of group that I survey. 18% of you have got a mobile site, which is fantastic. 73% of you don't have one, and 9% don't know. And we always get a proportion of don't knows because lots of companies haven't necessarily viewed their site on a mobile. If you are viewing your site on a mobile to see how it works, bear in mind that there are lots of different platforms and lots of different devices out there. And although iPhones probably get the most publicity, Android phones are actually the most popular. So I had a client I was working with the other week who had a brilliant mobile site that works really well on an iPhone, but it didn't work at all on an Android phone. And that was kind of important because they were essentially alienating sort of quite a lot of their potential audience. Okay, so back to the PowerPoint. So that was quite useful. So in terms of how do you look at your mSite, how do you kind of move forward with this sort of strategy? Really, I think there are three stages to go through. The first stage is to make sure that the site you have actually works. So understanding that things like Flash don't work on mobile phones, all those kind of things. I think the second stage is then to think about actually rebuilding your site so it works really well on mobiles. And then the third stage is to be behaviorally contextually specific. So let me just explain what I mean a little bit more by this optimization. So the first thing, as I mentioned, is optimizing for the technology. So Flash doesn't work on iPhones, various Java applications don't work on BlackBerries. So having an understanding of what technology works on what phone is important because it may affect how your audience, your existing audience, can see your site. Technology is important. Also, probably the most important thing when it comes to optimization is understanding the medium. So as you can see from the picture, we tend to navigate mobile devices and use mobile devices with our thumbs. So what that effectively means is navigation needs to be very prominent, buttons need to be very big, call to action buttons need to be quite big. You need to imagine what it's like to try and get around your site using a thumb. So you can really go for this. So if there are buttons you really want people to press, you can kind of put them in the bottom corner so their thumbs can reach them more easily. So some really interesting stuff going on in kind of mobile marketing where marketeers are putting unsubscribe buttons in the top right-hand corner where people can't reach them with their thumbs. So really kind of important to sort of understand how people are actually using these phones. Also, as I mentioned, there are a number of different manufacturers and platforms and screen sizes, lots and lots of different things going on out there. So all of them work in a slightly different way. Android phones kind of present sites and have buttons, functional buttons in a different place to iPhones. So it's kind of important to sort of understand the difference between the major platforms. Also, tablets are really going to be incredibly important over the next sort of 12 months after the Christmas rush. And understanding how your site kind of works on a tablet and how people use it on a tablet is, again, very important. I mentioned being behaviorally and contextually specific. What I mean by that is once you've kind of gone through this kind of stage and you've got an optimized mSite, it's kind of worth thinking about, well, actually, are there features and functions of the phone that we could use? So I was talking to a retailer the other day who wanted to put some location-based stuff in their stores. So basically, anyone who went to their store with a phone could literally sort of scan a barcode in the store, and literally based on the GPS device in their phone, could be shown whether there are any jobs available in that particular shop. So once you get running with this, there's some really interesting things that you can do, that are very specific to where people are and what they're doing. I'm not going to go into that hugely at this point because most of you haven't even got to the kind of having an mSite stage, but be aware that once you've kind of started on this journey, there are loads of really interesting things you can do. If you do recruit, geographically, like in the retail industry, for example, there might be some quite clever things that will improve your recruitment process. The biggest question with all of this is obviously about the application process. How could people possibly apply for a job on their mobile phone? Now, we saw on the survey that people actually want to. Also, I know of employers who, you can kind of get through their application form on a mobile, even though it isn't mobile optimized, and people actually do it. So people genuinely want to do this. Now, I think I'm a sort of strong believer that we should allow the audience to kind of apply for a job where and when where and when they want to. Obviously, there might be some debate around that, but I think that ultimately that's kind of where we're going. Also, I think if you kind of go out sort of 2 or 3 years into the future, there may well be people in lots of different professions who don't even own a laptop, who only actually access the internet through, through these kind of devices. So worth kind of bearing in mind. So some of the emerging methods of application that we're seeing, firstly and probably most obviously, is use of LinkedIn profile. So whether that's in most cases that's just leaving, using LinkedIn in, I think one employer I can think of actually uses LinkedIn as a sign-in process for their mSite, so you actually sign in with LinkedIn, so it picks up your data that way. Also, I've seen people leave sort of forms with spaces for people to sort of type in their LinkedIn profile so they can actually see who they are, so a slightly less sophisticated way of doing it. The second way is basically a cloud-based CV upload. So this is obviously the concept of having your CV pre-prepared and saved somewhere like Dropbox, Google Drive, Evernote, various emerging cloud services, and literally just kind of uploading it via your mobile and it parsing into the ATS. So it's pretty much like sending off your CV. Now, obviously, the problem with that is the use of things like Dropbox, Google Drive, and Evernote are still quite niche, although they will grow over time. But interestingly, this is exactly the methodology that the job boards use. So, job site, you're looking for jobs on your mobile. If you're applying for jobs on your mobile, you're accessing a saved application that you've typed in elsewhere. So think back to my slide, the Google slide about multi-screening. What we're not saying is that people won't necessarily want the whole of the recruitment process to take place on their mobile. They're likely to sort of dip in and out, use different screens. They might type their CV up on a laptop. They might want to actually apply on a mobile. So there are lots of different stages and lots of different ways that people are going to use mobile within this process. It's unlikely that anyone's going to currently use their mobile from start to finish within the process. However, different people want to do different things. So I think we should be very, very careful about assuming what our audience wants. So it may be that our audience does want to apply this way. It may be that they don't. But I think they should be the ones making the choice. So cloud-based uploads. Obviously, the third one is ATS integration. Probably the most problematic. Technically, it's actually very, very easy. It's very easy technically to get jobs out of an ATS onto a mobile site. It's also very easy to put data into an ATS from a mobile site, pull out screening questions, all those kind of things. So the technology is very, very straightforward. The difficulty is most ATS providers aren't really interested in this level of integration. So the challenge is actually with the ATS providers themselves. So if you're in a position where you can put pressure on your ATS provider, technically this kind of mobile integration isn't actually very difficult. So just bear that in mind. As I say, I don't know of any ATS providers who make this easy, but if they try and bamboozle you with science and technology, technically it's actually not very difficult. Okay, so moving on. Now, the screenshot I have on the screen now is actually from a project that I'm working on at the moment. And this project really kind of underlines the fact that there doesn't have to be a one-size-fits-all approach to applications. So this particular company, looking for IT people, all they want is leads sent to their recruiters. So all they're using the mobile site as a way of generating interested candidates who their recruiters are then going to phone up, because they fill most of their positions by sourcing. So to make that process more kind of mobile enabled and more interesting and more useful, we added in this Rate Your Skills tick list. So basically it's still sending leads to the recruiters, but they're getting a sense of where these people's skills are. So they get this skill rating, they get their LinkedIn profile, they get their current employer, and they get their contact details. And for that client, that's enough to go on. So you don't always have to have a complex application process. It really depends on how you currently recruit for those roles. So again, well worth bearing in mind. Okay, I'm going to zoom through some practicalities and then look at a quick case study so we can sort of leave a little bit of time for questions. Things to think about, top line things to think about. Always think about calls to action and conversions on mobiles. People like to go through mobile websites much quicker than they go through desktop websites. So actually signposting where people can find jobs, where people can apply, where people can register for more information, where people can join your talent community are really, really interesting things to do. Text is really, really bad on a mobile website. In our industry, we seem to be addicted to having career sites with loads and loads of text. And what the research is showing is that people much prefer pictures, video, and very, very brief text on their mobile site. So for lots of people, the biggest leap they have to take in going from desktop to mobile is actually getting rid of most of the copy on their site. And that is actually easier said than done. So that's kind of a big leap. I've got a checklist here. What I'm going to do is we're going to send you the slides at the end, so I'm not going to go through the checklist in any detail at this point, but this is kind of an interesting checklist to help you sort of assess where you might be with mobile at the moment. I just want to leave time to finish with a quick case study. So here's an example of a client that I think is doing it really well. It's AT&T out of the US. So this is the kind of process that you might go through. So if you search on your mobile for AT&T careers, they've optimized themselves for Google mobile search, which is different from Google's other search engines. So that's kind of worth bearing in mind. When you reach the website, it's a mobile-friendly website, clear careers content. You can see from those blue buttons are the navigation. They're literally thumb-sized and very, very clear. So you don't have to kind of scroll down, you have to scroll up, you have to pinch to make the site bigger, and you don't have any trouble pressing little links with your thumbs. So very, very clear about what action you take. You can see calls to action, join our talent network, job search. It's a really great site. When you go to the job search, you can see that the job search has been designed for a mobile phone as well. So you've got drop-down menus, big go buttons, all this kind of stuff. So you know, really, really good example. I'm going to wind things up there because we're nearly out of time, and I want to see if there are any questions. As a follow-up to this session, what we'll do is we'll send you a copy of the slides so you can go through the checklist. I recently published a mobile recruiting white paper, and the white paper has huge amounts of more detail about the things that I've sort of given you an overview of. So it has checklists that you might want to go through yourself, and it also has checklists that you might want to use the procurement exercise or put your advertising agency through, or all those kind of things. That white paper is free. So in the follow-up email, we'll make sure that there's a link for you to download the white paper for free. If anyone's interested in kind of taking this further, sort of beyond the white paper, I'm also going to include details of my company's mobile readiness audit that helps people kind of assess where they need to go to from where they are to sort of embracing mobile recruitment. So that's me from all the talking part of the webinar. Are there any questions that I can answer at this stage? I'm just trying to see what questions we've already been asked. And my question interface is so small I can't actually read it. Okay, so let me just scroll through. Okay. If you're creating an app, you have to create two different ones. Good question. The answer is yes, and actually it's probably more than two. So you have Apple apps on the Apple Store, you have apps on the Google Play Store, which are Android apps. You also have Windows phones now, and you still have Blackberries. All four of them have apps that are created different ways. So if you're actually creating an app, it can be quite an expensive exercise. looks great. What kind of level of cost are we talking about? Costs really depend on what it is you want to do. So obviously, some companies are sort of rebuilding their websites from scratch, and that can be quite expensive. But there are also some interesting providers kind of entering the market who will help you adapt what you have into adapt a mobile version of what you have. Now, there are some details of those kind of providers in the white paper, and they're kind of much more sort of cost-effective in terms of how they do it. So, in terms of costs, think of it the same way as building a website. Really, it depends who you go to and what you want. There isn't a sort of a kind of a set cost of it. Will we get copies of the slides? Yes. Was the Educate survey UK or US based? As I said, it was UK based. Whoops. Just having a look at, so people search the, okay, so the research that people prefer videos to text. There is some more formal research out there. Unfortunately, I don't have a note of where it is. I'm basing what I said on feedback from a conference that I attended a couple of conferences I've attended, where employers who've already kind of embraced mobile and are building mSites have looked at the type of content that gets consumed. So I think it was specifically UPS, Sodexo in the US, and I think PepsiCo as well. All of them found that actually video was amongst the most popular part of their site, and I've heard that from pretty much any employer who's put video on their mobile. There will be some more formal research around it as well, which I will try and dig out and perhaps put in the next white paper. Okay, so we are pretty much out of time, and we've pretty much gone through all the questions. So thank you very much for attending. And as I say, there will be some follow-up that comes to this, and I hope that I know Changeboard are going to be running a few more webinars in the future. So hopefully we can see you all again soon. So thank you very much for attending.